right, welcome to the program, The Desk on Global Television. Time for us to look at issues trending across the globe and also in the African continent as we look at big issues making the rounds. We've got a very interesting talking point. We'll be looking at what the Arewa Consultative Forum has said as per calling the President Bola Tinubu to review his economic reforms to reflect the greater sensitivity of the plight of Nigerians, especially those in the northern region. According to a communique after its National Executive Council meeting held in Kaduna, the ACF expressed displeasure at the economic policies of the present administration, saying that they had worsened the hardship an average Nigerian is facing. So we'll be looking at that closely. If the ACF, talking about the Arewa Consultative Forum, is speaking the minds of not just the northern region, but the 6 geopolitical zones of our great country, Nigeria. We'll also be looking at other issues making the rounds. We've got issues concerning the power sector, where it's the House of Representatives has asked the electricity distribution companies DISCOs to undergo 500 billion recapitalization exercise to strengthen their financial position to discharge their responsibilities to consumers. The development followed the adoption of the motion on the need to address the activities of distribution companies in Nigeria. That's not to forget the fact that Nigeria has experienced more than 10 grid collapses across the year 2024. So we'll be looking at what this would mean to Nigeria enjoying steady power supply and the DISCOs being able to discharge and satisfy Nigerian customers. So we'll be looking at that from a very close shave. We'll also be taking you to the issues concerning Labour Party. This is a very interesting talking point where the leadership of the Labour Party on Wednesday urged members of the National Assembly to consider passing a bill barring aging politicians from running for presidential governorship and other political positions ahead of the 2027 elections. The demand was made by the national youth leader of the party, Kennedy Ahanotu, and the Labour Party lawmaker representing Okbe Sapele Owe Federal Constituency, Benedita Etanabeme, at the 2024 annual meeting and the national conference in Abuja. So we'll be looking at what would this mean if the National Assembly answers to the prayers of the Labour Party. Would it mean that persons like Abubakar Atiku might not be able to run for the presidency come 2027? And also, if that is the case, that means Mr. President may also be missing out of action as regards the presidential polls. So we'll be looking at that issue very closely and the implications of that request by Labour Party. All right, we'll be taking you to other matters in the education sector, where the West African Examination Council has banned 13 schools in Kogi State from the West African Senior Secondary School Certificate Examination. The schools were banned following their engagement in malpractices during the 2023-2024 WAEC exam. So we'll be looking at that also closely. Now we'll also be taking a look at what's playing out from the foreign scene, where the International Court of Justice, ICC, has the International Criminal Court of Justice has issued a warrant of arrest for the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and others as regards war crimes against humanity and especially the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. My guest on today's edition would be the founder of TAF Africa, in the person of Dr. Jake Igbele, who will be joining us via Zoom to help us look at these issues closely with a very balanced and insightful analysis of all the big story. And also we'll be taking into the merit and demerits of the just concluded elections in Ondo State. Stay with us after this break. All right, welcome back from the break. It's It's the desk on Global Television, and we're looking at issues from a very close perspective. And we have as our guest this evening the founder of TAF Africa, who is also an international election observer in the person of Jake Ibele. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on the desk.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's look at issues. Let's begin from the foreign scene, where we've got a very interesting talking point where the International Criminal Court of Justice has issued a warrant of arrest for the Prime Minister of Israel and others as regards the killings in Gaza. They have been accused of committing war crimes against humanity, and especially the Palestinians in Gaza Strip. For you, are you shocked with this move by the ICC, or do you think it's much expected?
Well, no, I'm not. I'm not shocked. I think the ICC needs to be careful because the more they issue this arrest and a warrant of arrest that is never executed, the more they make themselves irrelevant and make nonsense of the purpose for which they are set up. I don't know what the facts are, what constitutes a head of state haven't abused maybe by way of in a conflict engagement, abusing all of the human rights indices to a point where they can be seen as deserving prosecution and eventual warrant of arrest. But when it becomes too much, the court will begin to lose their relevance. I mean, there's a similar warrant of arrest on Putin, which have not been executed, and several other um, authoritarian heads of states that the court have not been able to execute. These same heads of states travel around the world. They go to countries where ordinarily, as members of the International Criminal Court, the country should be able to permit them to arrest the individual and take hold of that individual. But that doesn't happen. So we find many heads of states, going about their duty and making nonsense of the uh, purported arrest. That's not to say that I am making little of the effectiveness of the International Criminal Court, but I'm saying that these claims should be thoroughly investigated and verified, and then they activate all the necessary machineries, including the assistance of countries where these individuals go to perfect the arrest. I remember the case of Charles Taylor here in Nigeria when he came here and went to Calabar. I think somehow they lured him to be to go as if he's crossing the border, and then they just got him arrested, and that's how he was apprehended by International Criminal Court. So in the case of Netanyahu, I don't think they will be able to execute that. Israelis are very good with security. They will protect their prime minister, and eventually, like I said, the International Criminal Court makes the entire purpose nonsensical of the entire purpose.
Do you think the fact that the ICC prosecutor, Karim Khan, is obviously from the other side of the divide, that's why he's pushing for these, for this warrant of arrest, and thus does not make it a very unbiased prosecution move by the ICC?
Well, I don't have a comprehensive research of where he comes from, but if you go by the name and what it sounds, probably he has some background within the Middle East, and if that's the case, it makes this warrant of arrest very, very, very suspicious, and can be described as maybe a political witch hunt, but I don't know how the details of where he comes from. But whatever happens, if he's of Middle East, if he has a Middle East background, the right thing to do is for him to recuse himself from carrying out this exercise. Otherwise, it makes the whole process very laughable.
All right. Let's come down to Nigeria, where the Arewa Consultative Forum has called on President Bola Tinubu to review his economic reforms to reflect a greater sensitivity to the plight of Nigerians, especially those in the northern region. According to the communique, after its National Executive Council NEC meeting held in Kaduna, the ACF expressed displeasure at the economic policies of the present administration, saying that it had worsened the hardship an average Nigerian is facing while outlining unique vulnerabilities of the northern region. The forum noted that its people were affected by food insecurity, limited access to education, skills training, and reliance on the microeconomic activities for survival. They emphasized that while economic reforms were necessary, they should not worsen poverty and hardship among citizens they intended to benefit. Do you think they're speaking the minds of the other 6 geopolitical zones of the nation? And at the same time, would you say the northern leaders, especially the governors, have also not done their people and the region enough good in the past?
Yes, I mean, your question looks like the answer to the overall thematic focus of this segment of your program. There is no doubt that they are not just speaking the minds of the region and the other geopolitical zone. They are speaking the minds of Nigerians in general. The excuse by the administration, the Bola Tinubu administration, that we need to be patient and people needs to understand that it has to be difficult, and then it becomes easy in the future. It's getting too long, and that's what is causing the discontent in the public square. It's just getting too long, and truly people are really struggling, and the situation is getting completely out of hand. So the call for the ACF call for reforms and to alleviate poverty and improve livelihood, warning against policies that sort of exacerbate hardship is a step in the right direction. I think it's like flogging the obvious, or an understatement to say that yes, people are in difficult times and that something drastic should be done, and the administration must take a hard look at some of their policies, the fiscal policy, the governance policy, the tax reforms. Most of these policies, which we have seen in the time past, most times suffer policy somersaults, and at the end of the day, they keep making changes. That means those things are not working. There's a need for them to take a holistic approach and solve the worsening situation, the economic worsening situation, as quickly as possible. It is really getting out of hand. The average Nigerians cannot put food on their table, talk less of moving around. The level of food insecurity is getting to a point where it is alarming. There is what is making rounds that the inflation is far above 40 to 50, if not 60%. Even though the government is claiming that it's at about 37% or thereabout, So these are some of the the issues that ACF are projecting, and they are not far from the truth.
All right. Before we leave the ACF also did say, come 2027, they are going to support a northern candidate for the 2027 presidential election. Do you think the ACF and the northern region are using the current state of affairs as an excuse or reason to push forward a northern candidate?
Well, in politics, anything can happen. And so politics sometimes, especially in this part of the world, is an opportunist game. And so when the opportunity arrives for you to hit back at opponents and take advantage of that window, the politicians will take it with two hands. And so that's actually what is playing out. A situation where they are capitalizing on what concern the people are expressing and taking advantage of the talking points and hammering home their point. So I'm not surprised. The assertion right now that they want to push forward a northern candidate. Of course, it's obvious because Bola Tinubu is from the south. And so if they want to fight him successfully, then he has to be a northern candidate and hopefully a strong candidate. The problem with us, my friend, is the fact that we don't have strong opposition. And when you don't have strong opposition, the ruling party will exploit that and further weaken what will look like an opposition. And that's the strategy that Bola Tinubu and APC are exploiting. They are further weakening what will look like a threat to an opposition that would constitute a threat to their re-election. And so the idea is to destroy them at the root. The question is whether the president wants to have a one-party state. And I think I was discussing with one of the APC chieftain, and he told me by himself, I'm sorry they had taken power from where I am, but they'll soon bring it. He said to me, okay, so I have enough light. Yeah, he said to me that what they are gearing at is to have a one-party state, a situation where there's no other political party but APC. Now, that is a very dangerous trend for the nascent democracy of this country. It's not something that should be encouraged, and it's a worrisome situation.
All right, let's leave the ACF now. Let's move to a very strong sector that has been giving Nigeria lots of issues, which has to do with the power sector. And we've got the House of Rep. Already this year, Nigeria has suffered more than 10 collapse of the national grid. And so the House of Representatives has asked the electricity distribution companies, DISCOs, to undergo a 500 billion naira recapitalization exercise to strengthen their financial position to discharge their responsibility to customers. The development followed the adoption of a motion on the need to address the activities of distribution companies in Nigeria. The motion was sponsored by Honorable Ayokunle Isiaka, a member representing the Ifo Ekwe Okoro Federal Constituency of Ogun State at the plenary on Wednesday. My question to you is, do you think this is what is going to solve the power issue in Nigeria? Are we shifting the burden from where it is to the discourse?
I think the idea is to recapitalize the financially burdened discos, for them to inject more funds into their infrastructure and operations. There's nothing wrong with that, but the only issue is, do they have the financial muscle? Are they publicly quoted organization that can go to the public and raise funds through IPOs? Those are the questions. Or then, what about their investors? Are they capable of injecting more funds into the system? And if they do, are they allowed by law to sort of establish their own infrastructure? And what kind of human capital do they have that can help to push whatever new structures and development that they will have to bring in to enhance their operation? But I think the major aspect of this intervention by the House of Representatives is the outcry from the people that they have been overcharged. I give you an instance, my humble self. I'm beginning to calculate how much it costs me, both at home and in the office, to run in a month. I can tell you, if you put together my office and the home, I'm spending close to 100 and something thousand or more every week to run my office and home. And sometimes the units, I don't know whether it's fast-tracked or they are manipulating their meter or whatever. It runs like crazy. And before you know it, you're in darkness. So if truly and really that these organizations have the financial muscles to run, I don't see them getting agitated and sometimes over billing people, or other times just creating a means by which they siphon the funds of consumers. So I think it can be described as a step in the right direction, but they need to also make sure that they are within the confines of all the enabling laws that allows them to establish, but also ensure that they don't end up muzzling the discos or the power sector to a point that they will be branded and they will not be able to operate. We need to learn from what happened to the capitalization saga of several banks in Nigeria, and learn from that so that we don't put too much pressure. The power sector is a critical sector in this economy. If we put unnecessary pressure on them, then we would be the loser at the end of the day.
All right. We also know the House of Rep has mandated the Federal Ministry of Power to declare discos as a non-state actors and take immediate measures to address their reckless actions which were threatening the nation's economy, while mandating its Committee on Power to investigate the activities of power distribution companies. Like you rightly said, now if they are being termed non-state actors, do you think this is going to make them also vulnerable? And what do you think is going to be the implication of this move by the House of Reps?
Well, I don't know what the structure is. When you describe them as non-state actors, they are a private entity, even though they are regulated by government. They're a private entity, and if they're a private entity that runs their business the way they want it, aside from the fact that they are regulated by government, then they don't need to be codenamed non-state actors. They are non-state actors already. The only government angle in their operation is the regulation. They are regulated by the Nigerian Electricity Regulation, NEC. They are regulated by them, and then there's also a downstream organization that oversees their entire operations and all that. So that's the only aspect that has to do with government. The rest of the aspect and the operations and everything are privately owned and privately driven. So if it's the regulatory agencies that makes anyone to recognize them as state actors, then I think the definition and the designation is faulty. As far as I'm concerned, they are non-state actors because they have their operations, their management, their recruitment, everything done by them. The only regulatory procedures and rules that they have to obey are the way and manner they either distribute, they sell, and all that. So I don't think government goes to them and say, how much money do you make? Bring it, let's share. They just make sure that they pay their statutory contributions and licensing, and then voila, there they go.
All right, well said. Let's move on to the next talking point. We're looking at Labour Party, as the leadership of the Labour Party on Wednesday urged the members of the National Assembly to consider passing a bill barring aging politicians from running for presidential, governorship and other political positions ahead of the 2027 elections. The demand was made by the national youth leader of the party, Kennedy Ahan Notu, and the Labour Party lawmaker representing Okpe Sapele Owe federal constituency in the person of Benedicta Etanabeme at the 2024 annual meeting and National Youth Conference in Abuja. In attendance were the reinstated Labour Party National Chairman Julius Abure and the National Secretary Omar Farouk and the state leaders. Let's look at this move by Labour Party. Do you think it's something the National Assembly will be willing to give a shot at, barring politicians, aging politicians? And what will be the effect if they decide to go that route ahead of 2027?
Well, I think they probably will have to borrow a leaf from my friend Samson Itodo Yaga that established Not Too Young to Run, and then begin to look at Too Old to Run. But you see, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Everybody is entitled to express what they think should be done in the governance sector or electoral space. But also, when making this kind of postulations and suggestions, you need to think first the constitutionality of your ideology. I don't know whether there's any constitutional provision that stipulates the age
limit.
The age limit. If there is none, I don't know, because I don't know. If there is none, then this whole thing is just a suggestion and may take years to be carried. So first and foremost, I would have suggested the lawmaker begins to influence the constitutional review process to bring this as a memorandum. Just going on television or declaring that during a party function or conference will not make it a reality. if he's serious, he should go through the process of legalizing this kind of idea. You know, again, we need to also look at what is happening around the world. Donald 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 Trump is going to assume the presidency at 78, and by the time he's leaving, he will be 80 years. You know, or 80 years plus. You know, just like Biden, you know, who is 80 years plus as an American president. So sometimes it's necessary to um, talk about age, you know, but make it constitutional. And I think across the African region is a mess. You find a situation where I just got back from Uganda. The Ugandan president is more than 90 years. You know, the Cameroonian president is far more than 90 something and even wheeze on in his pants.
That's Paul
Uh,
Biya.
Yes, you know, and these are people who has been in the state house for more than 50 years. For heaven's sake, what else do you want? You know, I can count more than 10 to 15 African presidents that are overaged. And I'm telling you, most of them are not no longer doing anything. All they do is stay in that state house, put their cronies to secure them, and eat the government food, and of course amass the wealth of the state as their own personal wealth. You know, so I think I support the ideology of um, um, at least
Age
putting some
limit.
level of age limit in those who are contesting. But first and foremost, the idea may be right, the idea may be moral, but you need to make the idea legal for it to carry weight.
All right. Before we leave Labour Party, they also did press on President Bola Tinubu to send an executive bill to the National Assembly to legalize BVAS and the electronic transmission of elections results in subsequent elections in Nigeria. Do you think this is very laudable, and do you think Mr. President will be willing to take this chance ahead of 2027?
Well, I mean, except you want to, first and foremost, there is a legal provision that makes electronics transmission and the use of technology in the electoral process a legal clause. It's in the Electoral Act. The Electoral Act captured that. Now, you're now saying to make a particular product and process legal. So if tomorrow somebody from another INEC chairman or anybody comes up and gives a particular electronics transfer a name, that means that provision has to change. I think we should look at the purpose than the product. The purpose is electronic transfer. The product here is BVAS. When you mention BVAS, you have sort of truncated the future opportunity of introducing any other electronic device. BVAS is a product. The electronic transmission is a law. So whoever, I think we should just leave the issue of electronic transfer and technology in the electoral process, rather than just mentioning a particular product that is being used that can be changed tomorrow. A new name can come up tomorrow. Somebody can come Eva. Another person can change Siva, you know. So let's leave the name, but ensure that we drive the advocacy for the purpose. Currently in the Electoral Act, there is electronic transfer in the Electoral Act, which makes it legal.
All right, we'll go for a very quick break. When we return from this break, I will be continuing our conversation. We urge you to rejoin us so that we can continue our conversations. We still have talking point as regards malpractice, where WAEC has banned 13 Kogi schools and blacklisted 14 supervisors for examination malpractice. So we'll be looking at that, what's playing out in the education sector, the implication of that move on Kogi State, which before now was adjudged as one of the best producing states in education. They'll also be looking at the misconduct as MBA backs Senate over the sacking of the CCT chair, talking about the Senate on Wednesday removing Danladi Umar as the chairman of the Code of Conduct Bureau, citing gross misconduct in office. So we'll be looking at that talking point when we return from the break. And not forgetting that President Tinubu is to name envoys today as the ministry post officers. That federal government has begun the deploying of consular officers to diplomatic missions. So we'll be looking at what this means and who are the diplomats likely and what the mandate will be for them at this time when the world is at a different conflict. All this is what we'll be looking at after this break. Please join us.
My friend, I told you that I was talking.
All right, welcome back on the break. Is still the desk on Global Television as we look at issues that are making the rounds across the globe and, of course, in Nigeria as we look at very salient issues. And we're looking at the examination issues where it's WAEC in the news this evening. The issue says the West African Examination Council has banned 13 schools in Kogi State from the West African Secondary School Certificate Examination. The schools were banned following their engagement in malpractice during the 2023-2024 WAEC exams. The State Commissioner of Education, Wemi Jones, made the disclosure during meetings with some principals and supervisors who were indicted by WAEC for examination malpractice. The commissioner also disclosed that the council had blacklisted 14 supervisors for exam malpractice in the 2023-2024 WAEC exams. All right, let's just, we also have other talking points as regards the fact that the Senate on Wednesday removed Danladi Umar as the chairman of the Code of Conduct Bureau, citing misconduct in office, reacting to the development in the Nigerian Bar Association, and Chief Adegboyega Awolomo counsel for the ex-Chief Justice of Nigeria, Walter Onoge, which Umar sacked in 2019, said the Senate's decision could not be faulted. So let's just quickly take our JK Pele's view on this matter as we wrap up the program. Thank you for staying with us on the program as we look at the last talking point.
Well, you have arrested me. I wanted to run out, but now you have arrested me. Anyway, the issue of WAEC and the malpractices and is a long-standing issue, and that they are taking action now, well, is a step in the right direction, but it's coming too little, too late.
All right.
However, it's something that should be done as a deterrent to those who are perpetually committing this fraudulent this thing. It's also worthy of note to say that even parents uh, are accomplished to this kind of practice. They encourage their children to get involved in these malpractices.
All right.
They go as far as getting paying for invigilators to help their children pass the exams. So I think it's something that should be widened
All right.
and all responsible held accountable.
All right. Thank you very much for your contributions on the program today. I want to say a big thank you, and we urge you to enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.
Thank you for letting me go. Thank you.
All right, so that's how much we are going to take care from Jackie Pele. Just to give you the last update as regards the talking point as regards the federal government has begun deploying consular officers to diplomatic missions worldwide before the anticipated release of the ambassadorial list. This move comes 14 months after 83 ambassadors were recalled in September 2023 following President Bola Tinubu's inauguration. A assessment of foreign policy led to the recall of all of the 83 ambassadors, both career and non-career, from their posts in September 2023, but subsequent appointment of replacement has yet to take place. The envoys were instructed to return to Nigeria by October 31st, 2023, marking a shift in diplomatic strategy and suggesting that the government was looking to realign its foreign engagement for better serve national interests. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Tuga, had said the ambassadors served at the President's behest in their host nations, and that it was the President's prerogative to send or recall them from any country. Meanwhile, Tuga added that it was part of the strategy to realign Nigeria's foreign engagement. Recall that it was done, but it left a diplomatic void as no replacement had been announced ever since. However, the delay in appointing successors has raised concerns. Remember that in April 2024, the government appointed 12 consuls general and 5 charged the affairs to represent Nigeria in 14 countries, but these interim measures fell short of filling the leadership vacuum in key missions. And so just to let you know that the consul generals and the chargé d'affaires can handle routine administrative duties and oversee the day-to-day operations of an embassy, but they do not possess the authority or diplomatic weight to engage at the highest levels, such as with the heads of state or critical international negotiations. So hopefully in the coming days and weeks, we'll be seeing those who will be appointed ambassadors, and we will know the various countries they would be sent to. Okay, that's how we're going to call it a wrap on today's edition of the program, The Desk. I want to say a big thank you to Jackie Pele, who is the founder of TAF Africa, for joining us on today's edition of the program, The Desk, and helping us with a very sound analysis of all the talking points. My name is Anthony Momodi, saying thank you for being part of the program. Hopefully tomorrow we'll be back again with loads of very interesting talking points, and we're going to be star-studded with guests to get us debate on very topical issues.